aliens sent a distress signal, and humanity answered with its full armada. Part 1. The Deep Space Monitoring Station floated silently at the edge of human territory. It was a small place, home to only 37 people who spent their days listening to the stars. Most of what they heard was nothing. Sometimes it was radio waves from distant galaxies. Sometimes it was the echo of dead stars. But on this Tuesday morning in 2287, they heard something different. Dr. Yuna Choi was drinking her third cup of coffee when the alarm went off. She almost dropped her cup. In 5 years working at the station, she had never heard that alarm before. It meant one thing: someone was trying to talk to them. "Are you seeing this?" her assistant called out from across the room. Yuna ran to the main console. The screen showed waves of data, all encrypted, all clearly artificial. This was not a natural signal. Someone, somewhere out in the darkness of space, was sending a message, and they wanted someone to hear it. "Get me Admiral Park," Yuna said. Her hands were shaking. "Right now." Admiral Junho Park was in a meeting when the call came through. He was 52 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent 30 years in the United Terran Fleet, fighting pirates and keeping the peace across 47 human colonies. He had seen combat, lost friends, and earned every medal the military could give. But he had never spoken to an alien. Nobody had. Humanity had been alone in the galaxy for as long as they had been looking. "Admiral, you need to see this." Yuna's face filled his screen. She looked scared and excited at the same time. "We have a signal. It's encrypted, but it's definitely a message. And sir, it's repeating. Someone wants us to hear this very badly." Junho felt his heart beat faster. "How long to decode it?" "I don't know. Could be hours, could be days. The encryption is incredibly complex." "Work fast, Doctor. I'll inform Earth Command." For 36 hours, Yuna and her team did not sleep. They worked through the encryption layer by layer. The mathematics were beautiful and terrible. Whoever sent this message was smart, maybe smarter than humans, but they also wanted to be understood. Hidden in the encryption were clues, small hints that helped unlock the next layer. When the message finally played, Yuna cried. The voice was not human, but the words were clear. The message had been translated into every major language it could detect from human broadcasts. The speaker sounded desperate. "This is Velkari homeworld. We are dying. The Kryn Dominion has surrounded our planet. They have killed 15 million of our people. Only 2 million of us remain. We have sent requests to the Galactic Council. They say they cannot help us. They say it is not their concern. We send this message to all who can hear. If there is anyone out there who still believes that life is sacred, please help us. We are running out of time." The message ended. Then it started again from the beginning. Yuna played it 5 times. Then she called Admiral Park. Junho watched the recording in silence. When it finished, he sat still for a long moment. Then he stood up and walked to his window. Outside, he could see the stars. "Where are they?" he asked. 12 days away at maximum FTL speed," Yuna said. "The signal is coming from the outer Perseus arm." "And this Galactic Council?" "We've detected their broadcasts before. There are hundreds of species out there, Admiral. They have governments, laws, councils, and apparently they're willing to let 2 million people die because it's not their concern." Junho felt something cold settle in his chest. "Send everything to Earth Command. Mark it Priority 1. The message reached Earth 6 hours later. It went straight to Fleet Admiral Yoonji Han, the highest-ranking military officer in human space. She was 58, small, and terrifying when she was angry. Right now, she was very angry. She called an emergency meeting of Earth's military and civilian leadership. Presidents, generals, admirals, and ministers gathered in one room. They watched the message together. When it finished, the room was silent. "They're 12 days away. Yunji said quietly. We have 2,847 warships in the United Terran Fleet. We have 600,000 Marines. We have the fastest ships in known space. What we don't have is time to debate this. The Galactic Council said not to interfere, one of the politicians said nervously. We've never made contact with aliens before. We don't know what we're getting into. I know exactly what we're getting into, Yunji said. Her voice was sharp as a knife. We're getting into a fight. The question is whether we're the kind of species that hears someone screaming for help and decides it's not our problem. The Earth president stood up. She was a young woman, only 43, elected because people believed she could lead humanity into a new age. Now that age had arrived much faster than anyone expected. Admiral Han is right, she said. We've spent 300 years wondering if we're alone in the universe. Now we know we're not. And the first thing we learn is that the galaxy is willing to let 2 million innocent people die. I will not let Earth be part of that silence. She looked around the room. I'm ordering the mobilization of the entire United Terran Fleet. Every ship, every Marine, every resource we have. We're going to Valkyrie space, and we're going to stop this. One of the generals spoke up. Madam President, we don't know anything about this Kryn Dominion. We don't know how strong they are. Then we'll find out, the president said. Send the order. Across human space, the call went out. Every warship received the same message. Every Marine was recalled to duty. Every colony prepared to send their defenders. In 300 years of space exploration, humanity had never mobilized its complete military force. They were about to do it for people they had never met. Admiral Junho Park stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Indomitable. Captain Minho Kang stood beside him, watching the tactical display. All around them, ships were gathering. Destroyers, carriers, battleships, cruisers. The largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. Do you think we can win? Minho asked quietly. Junho looked at the display. He thought about the Valkyrie voice in that message. He thought about 2 million people waiting to die. I think we have to try, he said. Ready the fleet, Captain. We leave in 72 hours. Where are we going, sir? Junho smiled, but there was no humor in it. We're going to war. The message went out across human channels. News reporters broadcast it to every colony. Nari Lee, a young war correspondent, watched it from Earth. She had covered conflicts before, small ones, border disputes, and pirate raids. This was different. This was humanity's first war with aliens. And they were fighting for aliens they had never even seen. She grabbed her camera and booked passage on a military transport. If humanity was about to do something insane and heroic, she was going to record every moment of it. Above Earth, the fleet gathered. 2,847 ships, each one carrying hundreds or thousands of people who had volunteered to fight for strangers. They formed up in perfect formation, a wall of steel and light stretching across the darkness. Admiral Junho Park looked at them and felt something he had not felt in years. Pride, fear, hope. All ships, he transmitted. This is Admiral Park. In 12 days we will reach Valkyrie space. We don't know what we'll find there. But we know why we're going. Someone called for help, and we're answering. The fleet engaged their FTL drives together. Space bent and twisted around them. And then they were gone, racing across the stars toward a world they had never seen, to save people they had never met. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity meant when they said, "We're here to help." Aliens sent a distress signal, and humanity answered with its full armada. Part 2. The 72 hours before departure felt like 72 years. Every shipyard in human space worked without stopping. Engineers checked every system 3 times. Weapons were loaded, medical bays were stocked, fuel tanks were filled to maximum capacity. This would be the longest military operation in human history, and nobody wanted to arrive unprepared. On Mars, the shipyards glowed day and night. Workers moved between ships like ants, carrying supplies, running final checks, saying goodbye to families. Some of them would not come back. Everyone knew it. Nobody talked about it. Colonel Tai-Ho Song stood in the loading bay of a troop transport, watching his Marines board. He was 41 years old, career military, and he had trained for combat his entire adult life. But this was different. Every other fight had been about human concerns, human pirates, human disputes, human problems. This time, they were fighting for people they could not even picture in their minds. "Do you think they look like us?" one of his young Marines asked. Tai-Ho shrugged. "Does it matter?" The Marine thought about it. "No, sir. I guess it doesn't." Around the solar system, similar scenes played out. Fathers hugged children. Wives kissed husbands. Friends said goodbye, maybe for the last time. The news channels broadcast everything. Humanity watched its defenders prepare to leave. Nari Lee moved through the crowds with her camera, recording faces, voices, moments. She was 29, fast-talking, and determined to tell this story properly. She had secured permission to embed with the fleet as an official correspondent. In 3 hours, she would board Admiral Park's flagship. She stopped a young pilot who was saying goodbye to his parents. "Can I ask you a question?" she said, camera already recording. The pilot nodded. He looked barely 20 years old. "Why are you going? You don't know these aliens. You don't owe them anything." The pilot looked confused by the question. "They asked for help," he said simply. "That's enough." Nari watched him walk away. She was beginning to understand something about humanity. They were not going because it was smart. They were going because it was right. In the command center on Earth, Fleet Admiral Yoonji Han coordinated everything. She had not slept in 2 days. Her staff brought her coffee and food, which she consumed without tasting. Her eyes were fixed on the tactical displays showing every ship, every unit, every resource being marshaled. Someone from the diplomatic corps entered her office. He looked nervous. "Admiral, the Galactic Council has sent another message. They're ordering us not to interfere." Yoonji did not look away from her screens. "Are they sending help?" "No, Admiral. They say this is an internal matter of the Kryn Dominion." "Then their opinion is noted and ignored." She finally looked at him. "Draft a response. Tell them humanity does not require permission to help people who are dying. Tell them we did not ask for their blessing. And tell them to watch carefully, because we're about to show them what honor actually means." The diplomat swallowed hard. "Yes, Admiral. Should I soften that language?" "No." The message was sent exactly as Yoonji dictated. It reached the Galactic Council 6 hours later. The response from various alien species ranged from shock to outrage to grudging respect. A few species quietly began to watch with interest. Maybe humans were different after all. On the flagship Indomitable, Admiral Junho Park met with his senior officers. Captain Minho Kang stood at his right hand. Around the table sat the commanders of battle groups, marine divisions, and support fleets. "We'll be traveling in formation," Junho explained, pointing to a tactical display. "The journey is 12 days. When we arrive, we don't know what we'll find. The Kryn might still be attacking. The Velkari might already be dead. We might be walking into an ambush." "What are our rules of engagement?" one commander asked. Junho's face was hard. "Simple. If the Kryn are attacking civilians, we stop them. If they refuse to stop, we remove them by force. We did not come this far to negotiate with people who commit genocide." Minho spoke up. "Sir, we don't know anything about Kryn military capabilities. We don't know their weapons, their tactics, their numbers." "Then we'll adapt," Junho said. "Humanity has always been good at that." The meeting ended. Officers returned to their ships. Junho stayed behind, alone in the briefing room, looking at the star map. Somewhere out there, 2 million people were waiting, hoping, maybe praying to gods humanity had never heard of. He would not let them die waiting. The fleet departed in waves. First the Vanguard, fast destroyers and cruisers designed for combat. Then the main battle fleet, massive carriers and battleships bristling with weapons. Behind them came the support vessels, medical ships, supply transports, and troop carriers. Finally, the rear guard, more destroyers to protect against any pursuit. It was the most beautiful and terrible thing anyone had ever seen. News of the departure spread across the galaxy. Alien species intercepted human communications, watched human broadcasts, listened to human chatter. They could not believe what they were seeing. No species mobilized their entire military for strangers. It was insane. It was wasteful. It violated every principle of rational strategic thinking. On the Galactic Council Station, representatives from 200 species gathered to discuss the human situation. The council chamber was enormous, filled with beings of every shape and size. Some breathed oxygen, some breathed methane, some did not breathe at all. A tall, insect-like representative spoke first. The humans are fools. They risk everything for people they have never met. They will destroy themselves for meaningless sentiment. An aquatic representative agreed. This is why they were never invited to the council. They are too emotional, too unstable. But in the back of the chamber, a few representatives stayed quiet. They watched the human fleet on their displays. They thought about their own species, their own histories, and they felt something they had not felt in a very long time. Shame. One of them, a being that looked like living crystal, spoke softly to its neighbor. When did we become so cold? When did we decide that 2 million lives were not worth the effort? The neighbor had no answer. While the fleet traveled through FTL space, life aboard the ships settled into routine. Marines trained, pilots ran simulations, engineers maintained systems, medical staff prepared for casualties. Nari Lee moved between decks, filming everything. She interviewed a cook who had been preparing meals for 3,000 people every day. She talked to a mechanic who had worked on ships for 20 years. She sat with Marines barely old enough to drink who would soon be in combat for the first time. Everyone told her the same thing. They were scared. They were proud. They would not turn back. She uploaded her reports every day, sending them back to Earth through FTL communication relays. Within hours, billions of humans watched her broadcasts. Children saw the Marines training. Parents saw the pilots practicing. Everyone saw the determination on every face. Humanity was united in a way it had never been before. Every colony, every country, every culture had sent its defenders. They were black and white and brown and everything in between. They spoke 100 languages. They believed in 1,000 gods or no gods at all. But they all believed in one thing, that 2 million lives were worth saving. On the 6th day of the journey, the Kryn Dominion sent their response. The message was broadcast on all frequencies, meant to intimidate. Humans, you are unknown to us. You have no standing in galactic affairs. Turn back now or you will be destroyed. The Velkari are our concern. What we do with our property is not your business. This is your only warning. Admiral Junho Park listened to the message 3 times. Then he recorded his response. This is Admiral Junho Park of the United Terran Fleet. We do not recognize your claim to the Velkari. We do not recognize your right to commit genocide. We are coming. If you wish to avoid conflict, leave Velkari space immediately. If you remain, you will be removed. There will be no further warnings. The message was sent. Around the bridge, officers waited for the Admiral's orders. Maintain course and speed, Junho said calmly, and send a message to all ships. Prepare for combat operations. We go in hot. The fleet continued onward. Behind them, the Kryn Dominion mobilized 800 warships to defend what they considered their territory. They had fought and conquered 30 star systems. They had crushed a dozen species. They had never lost a war. They were about to learn that there was a first time for everything. On day 11, Admiral Park gathered his officers again. "We arrive in 24 hours. Final preparations begin now. Check your weapons. Brief your crews. Say your prayers if you have them. Tomorrow we find out if the galaxy is worth saving." That night, Marines wrote letters to families they might never see again. Pilots checked their fighters one last time. Medical staff prepared operating rooms. Everyone did what they needed to do to be ready. In her quarters, Nari Lee reviewed her footage from the journey. She had hundreds of hours of material, faces, voices, stories. She thought about the pilot she interviewed on day 1, the one who said helping was enough reason. She hoped he would survive to see if he was right. Admiral Junho Park did not sleep that night. He stood in his office, looking at a photo of his family, his wife, his 2 children. They were safe on Earth, far from whatever was about to happen. He wondered if he would see them again. Then he put the photo away and returned to the bridge. The fleet dropped out of FTL space at 600 hours, ship time. Sensors immediately began scanning the system. What they found made everyone's blood run cold. The Velkari homeworld was surrounded. 800 Kryn warships formed a blockade. On the planet below, cities were burning. The sensors detected weapons fire, explosions, and millions of life signs that were fading by the hour. They had arrived just in time to watch 2 million people die, unless they could stop it. Aliens sent a distress signal, and humanity answered with its full armada. Part 3. The human fleet hung at the edge of the star system like a storm about to break. Every sensor was active. Every weapon was armed. Every eye was fixed on the tactical displays showing 800 enemy ships surrounding a dying world. Admiral Junho Park stood perfectly still on the bridge of the Indomitable. Around him, officers waited for orders. The silence was complete, except for the soft beeping of computers. "Are we being scanned?" Junho asked. "Yes, sir," the sensor officer replied. "Multiple active scans from the Kryn fleet. They know we're here." "Good. Open a channel. All frequencies. I want everyone to hear this." The communications officer nodded. A light appeared on Junho's console showing the channel was open. He took a breath and spoke. "This is Admiral Junho Park of the United Terran Fleet. We are here in response to the Velkari distress signal. To the Kryn Dominion, this is your final chance. Cease your attack immediately and withdraw from this system. You have 1 hour to comply." For 30 seconds, there was no response. Then the Kryn commander replied. His voice sounded like gravel grinding against metal. "Humans, you are insects. You have no power here. Return to your tiny corner of space before we exterminate you as we are exterminating these pathetic Velkari. You have been warned." Junho looked at Captain Minho Kang. Minho nodded once. They both knew what came next. "Kryn Commander," Junho said quietly, "you were given a chance for peace. You chose war. That was a mistake." He cut the channel. Then he turned to his officers. "All ships, combat formation, prepare to engage. Rules of engagement are weapons free. Show them what happens when you threaten innocent people in front of humanity." The fleet moved. 2,947 human warships spread out in perfect coordination. Battle groups formed. Fighter wings launched. Destroyers moved to the front. Carriers positioned themselves for maximum coverage. In less than 5 minutes, the human fleet transformed from a traveling formation into a weapon of war. The Kryn watched with what might have been amusement. 800 against nearly 3,000 sounded like bad odds. But the Kryn ships were massive, each one twice the size of most human vessels. The Kryn had conquered 30 star systems. They had crushed species that had been spacefaring for thousands of years. They believed they would crush the humans too. They were wrong. The Kryn fired first. Massive energy beams lanced across space, bright enough to blind unprotected eyes. The beams struck human ships, and 3 destroyers died in the first volley. Explosions bloomed in the darkness. Hundreds of human lives ended in seconds. Junho's face did not change. "Return fire! All batteries, show them what we brought!" What happened next would be studied by military academies across the galaxy for the next 100 years. Human ships did not fight like other species. The Kryn expected formation combat, ships trading fire in neat lines like ancient naval battles. Instead, the human fleet moved like a living thing. Destroyers darted between enemy ships, too fast to track. Fighters swarmed like angry hornets, attacking weak points. Carriers launched wave after wave of drones that confused sensors and created chaos. And the weapons. By all the gods in all the galaxies, the weapons. Humans did not rely on energy weapons like most species. They used kinetic kill vehicles, masses of metal accelerated to a fraction of light speed. When a 1-ton tungsten rod, moving at 0.3 C, hits a ship, it does not matter how good your shields are. Physics wins. The Kryn learned this lesson the hard way. The first kinetic strike hit a Kryn battleship directly in the center. The ship did not explode. It simply ceased to exist. One moment there was a vessel carrying 3,000 Kryn warriors. The next moment there was an expanding cloud of atoms. Then the second strike hit, and the third, and the 100th. Space filled with violence. Energy beams crossed with missile trails. Fighters dog-fought with Kryn interceptors. Ships exploded on both sides. The battle had no front line. It was everywhere all at once. Three-dimensional chaos that made no sense to anyone except those who were living it. On the Indomitable, Admiral Park watched the tactical display with calm eyes. "Concentrate fire on their command ships. Take out their coordination." "Sir, we're detecting communication between the Kryn fleet and the surface," an officer reported. "They're calling for the ground forces to execute the remaining Velkari before we can intervene." Junho's calm shattered. "How long do we have?" "Minutes, sir. Maybe less." He made a decision that would define the rest of his life. "Captain Kang, take personal command of the dropships. Get Marines to that surface now. I don't care if you have to fly through the entire Kryn fleet. Those people do not die today." Minho saluted sharply. "Yes, sir." He was running before the Admiral finished speaking. In the fighter bays, a young pilot named Hyunwoo Bae climbed into his cockpit. He was 27 years old and had dreamed of being a fighter pilot since he was a child. He had trained for 6 years. He had flown combat missions against pirates. He had never flown against anything like this. "All wings, this is command," his headset crackled. "We've got dropships making a run for the surface. They need an escort through the Kryn formation. Volunteer wings acknowledge." Hyunwoo did not hesitate. "Gold wing acknowledges. We're going in." 20 fighters formed up on his wing. They were outnumbered 50 to 1. Every pilot knew it. None of them cared. They dove into the heart of the Kryn fleet like eagles attacking wolves. Hyunwoo's fighter screamed through space at speeds that would kill a human if not for the inertial dampeners. Kryn interceptors appeared on his sensors. He selected his targets and fired. Missiles away. 2 Kryn fighters exploded. 3 more were closing. His wingman took one. Hyunwoo got another with his cannons. The third got past him and headed for the dropships. "No, you don't," Hyunwoo muttered. He pushed his engines past safe limits and chased. The Kryn was fast. Hyunwoo was faster. He locked on and fired everything he had. The Kryn fighter dissolved into fire. Behind him, the dropships streaked toward the planet. Inside one of them, Captain Minho Kang held onto a support strap and watched his Marines. They were checking weapons, saying prayers, doing whatever they needed to prepare themselves. 30 seconds to atmosphere, the pilot called out. The ship shook as Kryn fire hit their shields. Once, twice, 3 times. "Shields at 40%, the pilot said, voice tight. "We're not going to make it." "Yes, we are," Minho said firmly. "Keep going." The ship shook again. Shields dropped to 20%, then 10%. Then they failed completely, and the next hit would kill everyone aboard. The hit never came. Hyunwoo Bae had positioned his fighter directly between the dropship and the Kryn guns. Every shot that would have killed the Marines hit his fighter instead. His shields failed. His engines died. His cockpit filled with smoke. He smiled and kept his fighter in position until the dropship entered the atmosphere and was safe. Then his fighter exploded, and Hyunwoo Bae became the first human to die saving an alien species. He would not be the last. The dropships hit the ground hard. Ramps fell. Marines poured out into a nightmare. The Velkhari capital city was on fire. Bodies lay in the streets. In the distance, they could hear weapons fire and screaming. "Move! Move! Move!" Minho shouted. His Marines spread out in perfect formation, weapons ready, looking for targets. They did not have to look far. Kryn ground troops were everywhere, methodically executing Velkhari civilians. The Kryn looked like nightmares, tall and armored, carrying weapons that burned flesh from bones. A Kryn soldier saw the humans and raised his weapon. He was too slow. Minho shot him 3 times in the center of mass. The Kryn went down hard. "Protect the civilians," Minho ordered. "Anyone pointing a weapon at an innocent person, you are authorized to engage." The humans spread through the city. They found Velkhari hiding in buildings, in tunnels, anywhere they could. The Velkhari looked fragile, with large eyes and soft skin. They were terrified. Many thought the humans were more enemies. Then they saw humans fighting the Kryn, humans protecting Velkhari children, humans standing between civilians and death. The Velkhari stopped running. They started hoping. Above the planet, the space battle raged for 14 hours. It was brutal and terrible and beautiful in the way that war can be. Ships died on both sides. Thousands of lives ended. Space itself seemed to scream. But slowly, inevitably, the Kryn fleet began to break. They had never fought an enemy like humans. Other species fought with honor, with rules, with predictable tactics. Humans fought to win. They used every trick, every advantage, every desperate maneuver their captains could think of. And when their ships were damaged, when their weapons failed, when any sane species would retreat, humans kept fighting. One human destroyer, engines dead and weapons offline, simply rammed a Kryn battleship at full speed. Both ships died. The destroyer crew of 300 became heroes. The Kryn crew of 3,000 became a cautionary tale. Finally, after 14 hours of combat, the Kryn commander broadcast on all frequencies. "We withdraw. Humans, you have won this battle. But this war is not over. The Dominion will return with our full fleet. You have made a powerful enemy today." "Then come back," Admiral Park responded. "We'll be waiting." The remaining Kryn ships turned and fled. Of their original 800 vessels, less than 200 survived. Human losses were 89 ships destroyed and several hundred damaged. As the Kryn disappeared into FTL, the human fleet moved into orbit around the Velkhari homeworld. Medical ships began landing. Doctors rushed to help the wounded. Marines secured the cities. And Ambassador Sumin Yoon, who had been quiet throughout the entire battle, finally got to do her job. She met the first Velkhari in a bombed-out government building. The Velkhari was old, covered in wounds, but still alive. His large eyes stared at Sumin with wonder and confusion. "You came," he whispered in translated speech. "You actually came." Sumin knelt beside him, tears on her face. "Yes, we came. And we're not leaving until you're safe." The old Velkhari began to cry. "Why? Why would you fight for us? You don't even know us." Sumin smiled. "You called for help. That's all the reason we needed." Aliens sent a distress signal, and humanity answered with its full armada. Part 4. The Velkhari homeworld smelled like smoke and death. 3 days after the battle, human Marines still found bodies in the ruins. Some were Velkhari civilians. Some were Kryn soldiers who had stayed behind to keep killing until the humans stopped them permanently. Colonel Taiho Song walked through what used to be a residential district. Every building was damaged. Some were completely gone. He had been a soldier for 20 years and thought he had seen everything war could do to people. He was wrong. "Colonel, you need to see this," one of his Marines called out. The young man looked sick. Taiho followed him to a large building that had been some kind of community center. Inside, they found a mass grave. Hundreds of Velkari bodies piled on top of each other. Men, women, children, all executed with precision. This was not war. This was extermination. Taiho stood there for a long time. Then he activated his communicator. "Command, this is Song. We need forensics teams and medical examiners at my location. And tell Admiral Park we need to talk." In the makeshift hospital that humans had set up in the city's largest surviving building, Dr. Jaewon Park worked without stopping. He was 33 years old, skilled and completely overwhelmed. The Velkari wounded kept coming: burns, broken bones, radiation sickness, starvation. The Kryn had spent months making these people suffer before trying to finish them off. Jaewon's hands moved automatically as he treated a Velkari child. The child's mother stood nearby, watching with those large, expressive eyes that all Velkari had. She did not speak standard language yet, but she did not need to. The gratitude was clear. "Will she live?" the mother asked through a translation device. "Yes," Jaewon said firmly. "She'll be fine. I promise." The mother started crying. Jaewon realized it might be the first good news she had heard in months. He finished treating the child and moved to the next patient. Then the next. Then the next. He had been working for 60 hours straight. He would keep working until he dropped. Someone brought him coffee. He drank it without tasting it and kept going. In the government district, Admiral Junho Park met with the surviving Velkari leadership. There were only 12 of them left from a council that once had 200 members. They looked tired and broken. Their leader, whose name translated roughly as Keeper of Peace, spoke first. "Admiral Park, we cannot thank you enough for what you have done. You saved our species from extinction." Junho shook his head. "We haven't saved you yet. The Kryn said they would return with their full fleet. We need to prepare for that." "How many ships will they bring?" another Velkari asked. Admiral Park's intelligence officer, Hana Im, pulled up a display. She was 30 years old, sharp-eyed, and had spent 3 days analyzing every piece of data they could gather about the Kryn Dominion. "Based on their communications and ship movements, we estimate 4,000 warships," Hana said quietly. "Maybe more." The Velkari went silent. Even Junho felt his stomach drop. 4,000 ships. His fleet had lost 89 vessels fighting 800. The math was not good. "When will they arrive?" Junho asked. 8 days, Hana said. "Maybe less if they push their engines." Junho looked at the Velkari leaders. "I've sent requests to Earth for reinforcements. They're 12 days away. We're going to be outnumbered when the Kryn arrive." "You should leave," the Keeper of Peace said softly. "Take your fleet and go. You have already done more than anyone else in the galaxy. You should not die for us." "We're not leaving," Junho said firmly. "We came here to stop a genocide. That job isn't finished." One of the younger Velkari spoke up. "Then let us fight with you. We are not warriors, but we can learn. We will not die on our knees waiting for the Kryn to return." Junho looked at their faces. They were scared. Who wouldn't be? But they were determined. They wanted to fight for their own survival. "How many can you mobilize?" he asked. 40,000 volunteers, the Keeper said. "We will give them every weapon we have. We will teach them to fight. And when the Kryn come back, they will find that the Velkari are not as helpless as they thought." While preparations for the next battle began, Hana Im continued her investigation into the Kryn Dominion. What she found made her blood run cold. She stood in front of Admiral Park 3 days after the first battle, holding a data pad with trembling hands. "Sir, you need to see this. I've been analyzing Kryn communications and historical records. The Velkari are not the first species they've tried to exterminate." "How many others?" Junho asked. "6. 6 complete species, all wiped out. The Kryn did not conquer them. They did not enslave them. They simply killed every single member of each species and took their worlds." Junho felt something cold settle in his chest. "Did the Galactic Council know?" "Yes, sir. They knew. Every single time the Council voted not to interfere. They said it was an internal matter of the Kryn Dominion." "An internal matter," Junho repeated slowly. "Genocide is an internal matter." "There's more, sir. I found communications between some council members. They discuss the exterminations like they're discussing the weather. Thousands of years of history, hundreds of species, and they've all agreed that it's easier to ignore extinction than to fight to prevent it." Junho stood and walked to the window of his temporary office. Outside, he could see humans and Velkari working together to rebuild the city. Humans teaching Velkari how to use weapons. Velkari showing humans where injured civilians might still be trapped in rubble. "Send everything you've found to Earth Command," Junho said, "and send it on all open frequencies. I want every species in the galaxy to see this. I want them to know what their council has been hiding." Within hours, the information spread across the galaxy. News networks on hundreds of worlds broadcast the evidence. The Kryn had exterminated 6 species. The Galactic Council had known and done nothing. The response was immediate. On some worlds, there were protests demanding the Council take action. On others, governments issued statements condemning the Kryn. A few species even began mobilizing their own fleets. But most of the galaxy stayed silent. They were afraid. The Kryn Dominion was powerful. Fighting them was dangerous. And it was so much easier to let someone else handle the problem. In the Kryn Dominion capital, the Supreme Warlord received reports about the defeat at Velkari homeworld. He was ancient and massive, covered in battle scars from 100 wars. He had led the Dominion for 60 years. He had never lost a war. "These humans," he said slowly, "are a problem." "They are weak," one of his generals replied. "We lost 800 ships because we underestimated them. When we return with 4,000 vessels, they will be crushed." "No," the warlord said. "They will be exterminated. We will not just defeat them. We will make an example of them. The galaxy will learn what happens to species that interfere with the Dominion." He stood and looked at a map of the galaxy. "Send the full fleet. Every ship we have. I want the humans and the Velkari wiped from existence. Not one survives." Back on the Velkari homeworld, preparations continued. Human engineers fortified defensive positions. Velkari volunteers trained with weapons for the first time in their lives. Medical staff prepared for mass casualties. Everyone knew what was coming. Dr. Jaewon Park took a rare break from the hospital to walk through the city. A young Velkari child approached him, holding something in her small hands. It was a flower, somehow still alive in all this destruction. "Thank you," the child said in broken standard language. "Thank you for saving my mama." Jaewon knelt down and took the flower. He felt tears in his eyes. "You're welcome. We're going to keep you safe. I promise." The child hugged him and ran back to her mother. Jaewon stood there holding the flower, thinking about the 4,000 ships that were coming. He wondered if he could keep that promise. In the training grounds, Velkari volunteers practiced with human weapons under the instruction of Marine sergeants. Most Velkari had never held a gun before. They were naturally peaceful, more inclined to science and art than warfare. But fear and determination were teaching them quickly. One Velkari, a scientist named Teacher of Stars, struggled with the rifle he had been given. A human sergeant showed him the proper stance for the third time. "Why is this so difficult?" the Velkari asked, frustrated. "Because you're not built for war," the sergeant replied. "But neither were humans, originally. We learned. You'll learn too." "I spent my life studying the stars," Teacher of Stars said quietly. "Now I'm learning to kill. This is not who we are." "No," the sergeant agreed, "but it's who you need to be. At least for now. After we survive this, you can go back to studying stars." In orbit above the planet, the human fleet worked desperately to repair damaged ships. Welders worked in spacesuits. Engineers replaced broken systems. Weapons specialists loaded every missile, every kinetic round, every weapon they had. Admiral Junho Park stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the repair work. Captain Minho Kang stood beside him. "We're not ready," Minho said quietly. "Even with repairs, even with the Velkari volunteers, we're going to be outnumbered 4-1. "I know," Junho said, "but we're going to fight anyway." "Sir, with respect, we could retreat, fall back to human space, regroup and come back stronger." Junho turned to look at his captain. "And let 2 million Velkari die while we're gone? Let the Kryn finish what they started? Better than losing our entire fleet and then having them die anyway." "Maybe," Junho admitted, "but I didn't come here to make the smart choice, Captain. I came here to make the right one." On the 5th day of preparation, a message arrived from Earth. Fleet Admiral Yoonji Han appeared on every screen in the fleet. "Admiral Park, this is Yoonji Han. I have received your request for reinforcements. I am departing Earth with every available ship. We will arrive in 7 days." Junho felt hope rise in his chest. Then Yoonji continued. "However, I must inform you that we can only bring 600 additional ships. The rest of our fleet is too far away to arrive in time. I know this is not enough, but it's all we can give you." The message ended. Junho did the math. His current fleet of 2,758 ships plus 600 reinforcements against 4,000 or more Kryn vessels. They were going to lose, but they were going to fight anyway, because sometimes the right thing to do is also the hardest thing to do, and humanity had never been afraid of hard choices. Aliens sent a distress signal, and humanity answered with its full armada. Part 5. The Kryn fleet arrived like a wave of darkness. 4,000 warships dropped out of FTL space in perfect formation. They surrounded the Velkari homeworld completely, blocking every escape route, covering every angle. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Junho Park watched them come. His fleet of 2,758 ships seemed tiny by comparison. The reinforcements from Earth were still 2 days away. "All ships to battle stations," Junho said calmly. "This is what we came for." The Kryn Supreme Warlord broadcast on all frequencies. His voice was like grinding stone. "Humans, you have one chance to survive. Leave this system now. Take your ships and go. We will forget this insult." Junho took a breath. Then he responded. "Kryn Warlord, you have committed genocide against 6 species. You have tried to exterminate the Velkari. We will not let you finish. Leave now, or we will remove you by force." The warlord laughed. It was a terrible sound. "You have less than 3,000 ships. We have 4,000. Your mathematics are poor, human." "Maybe," Junho said, "but your understanding of humanity is worse. All ships, engage at will." What followed was 8 days of hell. The Kryn did not attack all at once. They wanted to drag it out, to make the humans suffer, to show the galaxy what happened to those who interfered with the Dominion. They sent wave after wave of ships, slowly grinding down the human fleet. On the first day, humanity lost 300 ships. On the second day, 200 more. By the 4th day, half the human fleet was destroyed or too damaged to fight. But the humans did not break. Every ship that could still fire kept fighting. Damaged vessels limped back to defensive positions around the planet and became stationary gun platforms. Crews that lost their ships transferred to other vessels and kept fighting. When ammunition ran low, human ships rammed Kryn vessels. On the surface of the Velkari homeworld, Colonel Taiho Song commanded the ground defense. Kryn dropships made it through the orbital battle and landed troops. The fighting in the cities was brutal and close. Taiho stood in a destroyed street, firing his rifle at Kryn soldiers while Velkari volunteers fought beside him. He saw a Velkari civilian, the scientist who had struggled with his rifle during training, now fighting with the skill of a veteran. "Teacher of Stars!" Taiho shouted. "Take your squad and secure that building!" The Velkari nodded and led his team forward. They moved well. They had learned fast. They fought like people defending their last hope, because that's exactly what they were doing. In the hospital, Dr. Jaewon Park worked amid the sounds of battle outside. The wounded never stopped coming. Humans and Velkari, soldiers and civilians, everyone bleeding, everyone hurting, everyone depending on him. His hands were steady even though he was exhausted beyond measure. He had not slept in 4 days. He could not remember the last time he ate, but he kept working because people kept dying if he stopped. A young Velkari nurse worked beside him, learning human medicine while treating her own people. Her name translated to Bringer of Hope, and Jaewon thought it was perfect. "Doctor, we're running out of supplies," she said quietly. "Then we use what we have more carefully," Jaewon replied. "Nobody dies because we gave up." On the 5th day of the siege, something changed. Admiral Junho Park received a transmission on an unexpected frequency. It was not from Earth. It was not from the Kryn. It was from the Galactic Council Station. A face appeared on his screen. The being looked like living crystal, beautiful and strange. "Admiral Park," the being said, "my name is, you would say, Crystal Singer. I represent a small coalition of species who have been watching your fight." "Watching," Junho said tiredly. "That seems to be what the galaxy does best." "Yes," Crystal Singer said, and there was shame in his voice. "We have been watching, and we are ashamed. For too long, we have chosen safety over righteousness. We have chosen comfort over courage. But you have shown us what we should have been all along." "Is there a point to this?" Junho asked. His fleet was dying. He did not have time for philosophy. "Yes, 47 species are sending their fleets to help you. We will arrive in 6 hours. Junho felt his breath catch. "What?" "We watched you travel 12 days to help strangers. We watched you fight for people you had never met. We watched you stand against impossible odds because it was the right thing to do. And we decided that if humanity can be brave, then so can we." The transmission ended. Junho stood in silence for a long moment. Then he started laughing. His crew looked at him with concern, but he could not stop. "Captain Kang," he said finally, "broadcast to all ships. Tell them help is coming. Tell them to hold on for 6 more hours." "Sir, we've lost over half our fleet," Minho said carefully. "I'm not sure we can hold for 6 hours." "Then we hold for 5 hours and 59 minutes, Junho said, "and we make the Kryn pay for every second." The human fleet fought like cornered wolves. They had lost 2,500 ships. They were outnumbered 3-1. They were out of ammunition, low on fuel, and running on pure determination. They held the line. On the 7th day, the reinforcements arrived. But not just from the 47 species that Crystal Singer mentioned. More kept coming. Small fleets from species that had never fought a war. Single ships from worlds that barely had a space navy. Even civilians in armed cargo ships coming because they finally understood that silence was the same as approval. The galaxy had been shamed into action. Fleet Admiral Yoonji Han arrived with Earth's reinforcements at the same time. She took one look at the tactical display and smiled grimly. This is Fleet Admiral Han to all human and allied vessels. The cavalry has arrived. Let's finish this. The combined fleet numbered 12,000 ships from 48 different species. They hit the Kryn fleet like a hammer. The battle that followed lasted 3 days and would be remembered as the largest space battle in galactic history. The Kryn fought hard. They were experienced warriors who had conquered 30 systems, but they had never faced a united galaxy before. More importantly, they had never fought people who refused to give up. The Kryn Supreme Warlord watched his fleet fall apart around him. Half his ships were destroyed. The rest were retreating in disorder. He broadcast on all frequencies one last time. "We surrender. Humans, we surrender. Please, no more." Admiral Junho Park, standing on the bridge of the heavily damaged Indomitable, responded. "You are offered the same mercy you gave to 6 extinct species. You are offered the same kindness you showed the Velkari. Surrender unconditionally. Your dominion is over." The Kryn fleet surrendered. 4,000 ships had attacked. Less than 600 survived to retreat. The Kryn dominion, which had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, was broken in 8 days. The cost was terrible. Humanity lost 1,147 ships. 7,483 human lives ended in the defense of Velkari homeworld. Allied species lost 2,000 more vessels, but the Velkari survived. 2 million lives saved. 3 weeks after the last battle, a ceremony was held on the Velkari homeworld. Humans and Velkari worked together to rebuild the capital city. Representatives from the 48 allied species attended. The Galactic Council had been dissolved. A new council was formed based on principles of mutual defense and collective action. Every species that fought at Velkari homeworld was offered a founding seat. Admiral Junho Park stood with the Velkari Keeper of Peace in front of a new monument. It was simple, just a tall pillar made of stone from both Earth and the Velkari homeworld, with names carved into every surface. The names of every human, Velkari, and allied soldier who died in the defense. Dr. Yuna Choi, who had decoded the original distress signal, read the inscription she had written. "They came from far away, knowing nothing of us, except that we needed help. They asked for nothing. They gave everything. This is humanity." The ceremony ended. People dispersed slowly, talking quietly, remembering. Junho found himself alone at the monument, looking at the names, so many names. He knew some of them personally. Hyunwoo Bae, the pilot who sacrificed himself so Marines could land safely. Commander Yejin Song, whose destroyer rammed a Kryn battleship. Lieutenant Seojin Kim, who held a defensive position on the surface for 6 hours against impossible odds. "Do you think it was worth it?" Captain Minho Kang asked, joining him. Junho looked at the city around them. Velkari children playing in the streets, humans and aliens working together, hope replacing despair. "Yes," he said quietly. "Yes, I do." Across the galaxy, things began to change. The new Galactic Council, led by Fleet Admiral Yoonji Han as humanity's representative, passed laws protecting endangered species. Military alliances formed based on mutual defense. Species that had been isolated for centuries began reaching out to each other. But the biggest change was cultural. The galaxy had learned a lesson from humanity. Sometimes the right thing to do is not the safe thing. Sometimes helping strangers is more important than protecting yourself. Sometimes you have to stand up even when the odds are terrible, because if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. 4 months after the battle, 14 different species sent distress signals into space. Each one was different. Some were being invaded. Some faced natural disasters. Some were dealing with internal conflicts that threatened to tear them apart. Every single message ended the same way: requesting assistance from Earth. Admiral Junho Park, now promoted to Fleet Admiral and given command of all human military forces, received the messages in his office on Earth. He looked at them for a long time. Then he smiled and pressed a button on his desk. This is Fleet Admiral Park to all United Terran Fleet vessels. We have multiple distress calls from across the galaxy. People need help. Begin mobilization procedures. We leave in 72 hours. His aide looked at him with surprise. Sir, should we verify these threats first? Some might not be legitimate. Junho shook his head. Someone called for help. That's all the verification we need. In the Valkyrie system, now home to a permanent human fleet base and the headquarters of the new Galactic Defense Force, the monument stood under alien stars. Valkyrie and humans passed it every day, always pausing to read the inscription. A young Valkyrie child asked her mother what it meant. The mother knelt down and pointed at the words. It means, she said gently, that when we were dying, strangers came to save us. It means that humanity heard us calling and came running. It means that we are not alone anymore. Will they come if we call again? The child asked. The mother looked up at the ships in orbit. Human vessels, Valkyrie vessels, ships from 48 different species all working together. She smiled. Yes, little one. They will always come. That's what humanity does. They hear someone calling for help, and they answer. The child nodded, satisfied with that answer. She ran off to play with her friends, human children and Valkyrie children together, growing up in a galaxy that had finally learned the meaning of community. Above them, the fleet prepared for the next mission. There were always more people who needed help. There were always more threats to face. There were always more battles to fight. But now, humanity did not fight alone. The galaxy had learned from them, and together, they would make sure that no species ever had to face extinction, while others watched and did nothing. Because someone had to be willing to answer when the call for help came, and humanity had shown the galaxy that they would always answer. Always. The monument stood as a reminder, not just of the battle that changed everything, but of the simple truth that had always been at humanity's core. When someone needs help, you help them. No matter the cost, no matter the odds, no matter how far you have to travel, you answer the call. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not their weapons, not their tactics, not their technology, their willingness to care about strangers. And that gift changed everything.